I really believe that the unique thing that I'm wired to do and that God is asking us to do is to lead small, meaning every individual is the movement.
Yeah.
It's actually not about the big.
Welcome to Jesus in the Upper Left, where we're talking about gospel multiplication in the Pacific Northwest.
Thanks for joining us again on another episode of Jesus in the Upper Left. My name is Tim Osborn. I'm here with Pete Armstrong, and we are just guys that have been leading in Portland for a while and get the just distinct opportunity to host and welcome today Derrill Corbin. We're so glad to have you here. Derrill, welcome.
Thank you. I am honored to be here.
Derrill, you are now the senior pastor of Manna House.
What?
Yes, we
are announcing it today.
Pete and I are very honored to be able to let you know
We
that.
recorded this, guys.
Yes, yes.
I thought it had been a pretty intense few months, but
That's what happened, in case you didn't know.
That is God's call on your life, my friend.
gosh, yeah.
So before we for those of our listeners who don't know Manna House, I kind of want to back up and go, tell us tell us you first and family, but then if you could start with, what led you into church planting? And then we want to kind of get to what it means to kind of your journey with Manna House and leading that now.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot with that. And
it's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
That might be the whole podcast right there.
It might be. It might be. And by the way, thanks so much for the privilege to be here and just share with you guys and share with anybody else.
We've been looking forward to this. Yeah, we've really wanted to have you here, so thank you.
Yeah, it's been something I know we've talked about for a while, and it's an honor. It really is. So thank you for that, and thank you guys for being friends. I would say it's been very interesting stepping into the senior role and finding friends in the city pretty quick. You guys have welcomed me, and so many senior pastors have, and it's been a real privilege. But my journey, Manna House is a 72, 73-year-old church. It's been around for quite a while. And I met my wife there. We actually came as students in 1992.
Nice.
My family's relationship with, it was called Bible Temple at the time. It goes all the way back to the 80s. Every once in a while on a Sunday night, my parents would get in the car. We lived in a little town in Western Washington, and we'd drive down to Portland to go to this church on 76th and Gleason at the time.
Oh, wow.
And they just heard that there was worship and good teaching. And so we would go there. And as a young boy, I remember being struck by whatever I experienced there. I think now I would just say, I think it was the presence of God. And as a young boy, I remember being in the balcony of that building and praying a prayer, Lord, someday could I be part of a church like this?
Wow.
And like that in and of itself, I think back and you realize how personal and caring and thoughtful and sovereign God is over our lives. And so, through a variety of circumstances, I ended up there in 1992 as a student at Portland Bible College. And our church has this college. We have a school. And so anyways, I came there as a student wanting to be in ministry and wanting to study the Bible and believing that this was a good, solid church to be trained in, and ended up meeting this girl who also grew up near the Washington coast in a very small farming community like I did. And she tracked me down. I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes. What else can I say?
We would have to have her on next
I know,
to
seriously.
confirm this. But
We've been married 28 years, and we have 3 young adult kids. And they all love Jesus. They're all in the church with us. And
sweet.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the history there.
Well, and that's just pause on that for a minute.
Yeah.
First of all, congrats, 28 years.
Thank you.
Even more, maybe, to be a pastor that whole time. 3 young adult kids following Jesus and with you is tremendous. Like that's...
It's the mercy of God and the grace of God in our lives.
Yeah.
Because frankly, our kids, probably like yours or maybe somebody else who's listening, I don't know, they have gone through a lot. They grew up in a church planting home. They grew up in a church that had to go through building programs and campus expansion. And and then surrender all of that to make a move back to our sending church. And then not just come back, but come back as executives and then eventually take it over. And they have gone on that entire ride. And to be honest, some of it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like, I
It's
know
tough.
that's hard to believe.
Our kids
but
see that. Our kids see that though. They see everything.
They see everything.
You know.
Well, I guess that's what I'm celebrating is to
Yeah.
have a front row seat and to see the good and the bad, the fun and the painful.
Yeah.
And not just follow Jesus, but also to follow you and your bride.
Yeah.
And that's so
It's been really good.
Way to go.
Our two sons actually in the journey spent some time out of the church.
Yeah.
They walked away and just said the pain's too great. And again, I say it's the mercy of God. I have faith for prodigals to come home for other people because I've watched God. And to be honest, I could probably talk about it in depth. It's for another podcast, but the thing that wounded them is the very thing that also healed them. The church, it was in the church that they saw the pain, the trial that caused them to just throw up their hands. But as they started to come back around, the church rallied to them and surrounded them and became the source of healing.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and I'm telling you as a dad, but also as a shepherd, being able to navigate that, and it healed something in me because I probably picked up a little pain and trauma.
I'm sure.
in the process.
Harmed in community, healed in community.
100%.
Beautiful.
And I watched my kids be healed by, and in the very same house, and that was, and still is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's actually caused me to fall in love with, like, Jesus' bride again, his body, and say, wow, this really works. It matters.
Yeah.
It matters.
That's good.
Yeah. You see it. You see it
really
over.
does.
You see it over the long haul.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's what I was thinking is like
Yeah.
a marriage, right? Like that. I mean, three of us have all been married long enough to know, like you got to go through the ups and the downs, and it's stronger, right? You go through something difficult, something painful, and you heal and you grow through it and you become stronger. Now you don't sign up for that. Like, let's do something difficult so that we can be stronger. I don't know anybody that actually has
Nobody
that
asked
thought.
for that.
Yeah.
After the
Nobody
fact.
asked for that.
No. So to be able to celebrate that with your own children in your own house, in your own church.
I think that's it. They got wounded because of toxicity in the church. But just because there's toxicity in it doesn't mean it's toxic.
Yeah.
Like, I think those are two different things. I think there can be things that are not good in a church. It doesn't mean the church overall
Is
toxic or unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that they learned in this process is, oh, wow, even if I experience pain there, it doesn't mean it's all bad. And so it's been a really, really interesting journey.
Yeah.
And I just say amen to what you said, which is I am celebrating 3 young adult kids who love Jesus.
That's so good.
And my daughter graduated from Portland Bible College. My son is graduating in just a couple of weeks from there.
Wow.
And then my youngest is he's home. He's becoming a fireman, but he's working in the church full time in the maintenance
Oh,
department.
I was going to say you're not accepting his application. Is that what you were doing? That's where that was going.
I actually talked to him yesterday. I said, so are you thinking still fireman? Are you thinking maybe PBC? And he said, Dad, I am not going back to school. And I thought, okay.
I got you on record. I got you on record. So
I thought you were going to say he's going to George Fox or he's going to some,
I would celebrate it. I really would. But he just said, I don't want to do school.
Okay,
That's kind of his thing. So
oh, careful. All the things we said I don't know about you, but I know I've got several things I said as a young adult. I'm like, should not have said that because that very thing ended up happening. So,
yeah, I probably said that about pastoring Manna House.
We'll edit that out. Don't worry.
Derrill, where did you guys plant before coming back to Manna House?
It's a great question. So we got married in 96. Our church at the time, it was called City Bible Church, and it's been since the 70s. It's been a church planting church.
Yeah.
So it's just in the water. It's in the
Nice.
in the doctrine. It's in the essence, right, of the house, the culture. And so I didn't know that. I didn't know what church planting was until I came there as a student. And I sat in a class called church planting at Portland Bible College. Anyways, so I'm sitting in this class, and Bill Scheidler is a teacher, and I love Bill.
Yeah.
He grabbed me after class one day, and he said, "Derrill, I see it in you," and that "I see in you" kind of conversation really changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah,
But he said,
yeah.
"Derrill, I think you're a church planner," and he said, "You just need to seek the Lord as you're taking this class and just see if it resonates." And so that, and a class on world missions, really understanding that God is on mission and he himself is a church planter.
Yeah.
I think the whole whole world mission, he created the earth, put mankind in it, said, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth." Like, that's God.
Yeah.
God is the first church planter.
The Leslie
And
Newbigin thing, like the church doesn't have a mission. The mission has a church.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you start to see that, and it's the nature of God, and so that's what I grew up in. That's what I was discipled in. And so we got married in 96, my wife and I did, but our objective in even marrying was we're going to church plant. And so being raised in Southwest Washington, this is the long way around to answer your question, by the way. But anyways, as we got married, we're looking at Southwest Washington. Both grew up in very rural, small town kind of logging and farming communities. We thought if we go there, we're going to just shepherd in that community. But I think God's asking us to do something more in a region. And so we didn't go to a large city. We went to Centralia, Chehalis area, so about 90 miles north. But the word Centralia was kind of the thing that resonated with us.
Yeah.
If we could be in the central part of the state and start thinking regionally, there could be maybe other small towns we could impact. So we went with the idea that we would multiply.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We went in 97. We had been married a year and a week. And we started our church. I was 24 and my wife was 22.
Wow. Yeah.
So we laugh about it. Yeah. We say that was the dumbest decision we ever made in our life.
No, I want to read the book about that, though. I want to read the memoirs from that.
Jeez.
I'll give you one little insight. One little insight.
Chapter 1. Here we go.
So, well, couple. First of all, it went really well. Like,
Great.
I don't know,
Praise
within
God.
18 months, we bought a 30,000 square foot warehouse. The church was self-sustaining, most poverty-stricken county in the state.
Yeah.
So, but we were breaking berries. So people started calling me the Midas man, the guy with the Midas touch. And so, that did real well for a 24, 25-year-old. I actually believed it. And
Of course. Didn't cover that class in college.
And so
That's grad school.
Unfortunately, I started treating people that way. That's really where it kind of went awry. And there was a lady, her name is Linda. And Linda, by the way, and her husband were at the succession service where I became the senior pastor
That's cool.
of Manna House. So these are lifetime friends now.
Yeah.
But they were in the church, and we were talking about neighborhood outreach and evangelism. And she started sharing some ideas in the meeting. And I told her I didn't want her ideas. Like I said, I came with a vision. I'm the vision caster, and I need you to just support what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And she said, I'm 25. She's probably 45, master's degree. She leads the parent services division of Centralia College.
Nice.
So she's sitting there and she says, "Young man, I don't like that very much." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Vision should be collaborative." And I don't like being on a team that's unilateral. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, I thought I was the guy with the Midas touch, you know? But I am.
Somebody told me I was the Midas touch.
Did you not hear what I said? But I already said
Yeah,
that.
I was praying this morning, and God told me.
I'm embarrassed, honestly, that this is going to be on the podcast, but I'm the one telling the story.
come on.
I'm the one telling the
Yeah,
story.
you get to tell your
It's
story. It's
authentic.
authentic. It's
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
Yeah.
She corrected me,
Amen.
Well, and you heard it.
and I heard
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think for me, the reason why I in jest say it was the dumbest decision I made to church plant, it was the right thing for my wife and I. The Lord put us in an environment with people who helped shape who I was.
Yeah.
And I tell church planners now, like, get on somebody else's team
Yeah.
and spend 5 years and just get the rough edges knocked off. Just get yourself in order and let somebody else cover your mistakes. And
Yeah.
because if you go out too early, you're gonna make that level of mistake in public, and you're gonna wound people. I thank God that He put a handful of people in my life that really did shape and help form me. And I was their shepherd, and they did the give and take of that. Like they really went with us on the journey.
You minister to them, they minister to you.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, that became the key. Because I think when you church plant, there's a lot of unilateral stuff you have to do. You're the guy, you're the gal, you're setting vision. And I think all that is correct. I really do. But there comes a point in the journey where you have to start surrendering and giving away authority for that church to become healthy. And to be honest, I feel like that's the number one mistake I watch in church planters. It's not in their fundraising. It's what are they building? Are they going to move from church planter to team lead? And are they going to really build a movement in that local church?
Yeah.
Are they going to give away some authority?
Yeah.
And then when you do, it actually becomes mutually shaping. It really does. And the church can rise. But
That's good.
it's huge. It's huge to me. And so I get at least a call a week from churches that are in the process of starting to develop their local, because our churches are autonomous. They relate in a network. But
they're independent.
They're
and
independent. The only way that I would have authority in another church is if the elders asked me to come, the local elders asked me to come, and whatever parameters they gave me is what I would function in. So most of the time it's horizontal. Every once in a while, if they're in crisis, I would step in, or somebody would step in vertically and help
At their request.
But it's only at their request. And so
But you were saying that that's a stage like that gets developed in the local church.
It does. It gets developed. And the journey towards local leadership is, so I get a call a week saying, how do you build an eldership?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you build it through giving away authority. That's what you do. And it's got to be strategic, and it's got to be intentional. And
right time.
And right people.
Yeah.
And you don't do it all at once. You do one and then the next. And I have got a lot of thoughts about all of that.
Yeah.
But I think but back to planting, for me, realizing the benefit of people that are there with you. Like the Lord sends you people from day one that are right around you, and you have to give appropriate level of voice. And some it's more faster, some it's slower.
Yeah.
I think God put Linda in my life very quickly to help me realize I'm not the guy with the Midas touch. Like Jesus is that guy. And she did it from a right heart and a right perspective, and it changed me. It really did.
You said you really regularly recommend that those that want to plant join somebody's team, and you said like 5 years to get the rough edges kind of shaved off or formed.
Yeah.
But that seems like, so I was just thinking of like, in order to be able to do what you're talking about is give away, like, and particularly from a male perspective, is like, it's, especially at that age, ego is such a such a new, challenging.
Yeah.
Maybe not you. Maybe you. Right. For some, like that's so to be able to watch somebody else model that and be on their team, so that when you step into the lead, to be able to do that, which you didn't necessarily have that because you were starting so young, and so you had this kind of grace of what sounds like a very mature, direct woman in that conversation, and I'm sure on your team, and obviously, as you said, lifelong friends now. But to be able to speak that to you is like, and I mean, kind of a turning point for you. Like you could respond one of two different ways, and one would go very poorly, and one would continue to
Totally
help the church grow. But
I think in a church that makes room for young leaders, to be around and to be around other leaders where that kind of activity can happen.
Yeah.
It's not always the case that somebody who's going to plant has that opportunity.
Yeah.
Locally.
yeah,
But if you can't, you got to saddle up next to somebody who's further down the road and get on a monthly call. You've got to do something.
Yeah.
There's ways to get that kind of voice in your life if they're not local, and it would be a every other month, even personal visit, to somebody who's further down the road. So those kinds of things can happen. But if young planters are going out, inexperienced people, man, you've got to have voices that can see those things. So that's just, it's one of the key factors for us, for sure.
You got to have like a safe place to make mistakes. I know like Tim Keller had a thing of like you plant in your 30s. There's the exceptions, and I like when I was in New York with them, like John Tyson, he gets to plant at 27, 28. Nobody else does though, really.
Sure.
Because you gotta get those 5 years, like coming out of Bible college, coming out of seminary, coming out of a career, so that you have a safety net. Like you said, because there's just too much. It's just so difficult. There's so many pitfalls and so much.
We actually have started to, just as we've matured in developing church planters, which. I mean, we are so far not perfect at all. There's some organizations that are hitting like, certain metrics of what they call success in church planting. And we've planted, when I say we, I'm talking about in the 70 years, probably 100 churches. And probably 50 of those are still intact.
Amazing.
So it's a 50% success rate.
And that's like all up and down the West Coast, right?
Yeah, I mean it's actually
globally, right?
all over the nation.
Wow.
Wow. And then we do a lot. We do church plants nationally, and we do missions globally.
Okay.
And missions can be church planting, but and we would say for missions we do primarily church planting. It's not that we're not up for social causes or things like that, because we are, but we would rather plant a church that does a social cause.
Yeah.
This is just our ministry philosophy, and it's not, disparaging of anybody else's, but we kind of just are a church planting movement. So our missions is kind of broken into two categories. We do church planting globally as level 1. Level 2 is support to church planting or church leadership. So we send a lot of level 2 missionaries that go out to existing churches that we've planted, and we send them as support. So they might be leadership support. We might send a youth pastor. We've got 2 guys right now that we've put in Romania at a church that we planted years ago, and they're strengthening the youth ministry and a couple of other things. And so anyways, they're getting their 5 years as like a level 2 missionary.
That's great.
All these amazing worship leaders you guys are training, sending them out.
We try to. We try to. And so that really is kind of the approach for us, is if we can get somebody either in our church in an environment or out with somebody else and get them that.
Yeah.
And 5 years it's not a requirement, but it is kind of an idea in our mind. And so a couple that we just sent a couple years ago to San Diego to plant, what we did for their 5 years is they wanted to plant a bilingual church. And one of our campuses locally didn't have a Spanish service in it. And so we asked them to lock in at that location and prove that they could develop and gather. And not just gather, but start to develop team. And so over the course of 2 years, they gathered 100 people and had leaders developed into a functioning service. And along the way, they made a boatload of mistakes. They were challenged in areas, but again, the team around them,
they were in a place.
They were in a place,
system, and support structure that could provide those things for them, rather than kind of pass-fail out on their own.
Yes. So then we were able to say in front of the church, this is a couple that's proven themselves. Something will continue, in their absence.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where we've come to in the last few years is how can we give tangible fruit results in those 5 years where we're looking for team building, we're looking for doctrinal clarity and consistency and integrity. We're looking for communication skills. We're looking at their marriage and their finances, and are they doing something that's becoming sustainable? And you should be able to tell with a leader on a team in a few years whether they have the kind of chops that are going to be required. Because if they can't effectively build a team here, they will never build a team out there. If they can't handle their own money, what makes you think that they can handle money in the house of God? So those kinds of things. I'm sorry, I keep itching my nose here, but those are the things that we're looking for in that period of time is kind of core components. We don't require a level of, a master's degree or something like that. We do prefer our church planners or graduates of our college or something equivalent. We're also looking at these other proven skills. And
that's so. I was just in a conversation recently about the role of education, seminary specifically, but then also just broader college education in our culture today. And there's so much conversation around learned skills, residencies, practicums. Certainly the rise in both need and attendance at trade schools, and are you learning a skill versus, as we all know, that some universities have classes that are, not only worthless, but almost detrimental. So there's some just wasted classes out there. So they're not actually expanding somebody's ability to think well and to contribute to society. But in that, what you're talking about is as a movement, as a church and churches that are in a movement, you're creating space for leaders to be coached and developed and then sent out. And if they can't they might be able to take the classes which you want and prefer,
100%.
But they have to be able to do it and to provide coaches and mentors and help alongside is so good.
It's head, hand, heart. It's got to be, I think that's pretty basic. Do they have heart? Is their character being formed? Because I think we all understand it's one of the biggest problems we've got in leadership around the nation is people taking on a load of leadership that their character can't sustain. And so if there's a little fracture in their soul, the bigger that thing gets, that fissure becomes larger and larger and larger. And Fred Markert, who's a key YWAM guy and a missiologist, he said you can't build on fracture. That's again where I get that concept from. He said if you're trying to build something significant, a multiplying movement, and the cracks are there, it's not a crack to me is different than brokenness. I think brokenness is part of the qualification. The woundedness part of you, that needs to be there. But I'm talking about character flaw. It's the lack of integrity. It's the marriage that isn't in order. It's the lack of right use of finance. So the heart is so important. And then even in the areas of woundedness, are they overcoming those? Have they found? Are they doing that in vulnerable community? Like those are all the heart pieces. And then head, what are they preaching exactly? And do they even know how to put a feeding plan together and really take a congregation somewhere through its preaching? And so for more of a charismatic movement, we're actually passionate Bible people. And I know that those two things don't often go together in that stream, but it's a unique quality, I think, of our church. And so we're really passionate about that. And then do they have the experience? So where are they proven? And how is that played out? So those are kind of just to add a little terminology, even what you were saying.
Absolutely. Like you said, kind of your movement. And it's not a denomination. It's a movement that in many ways is independent. So you have your own DNA, which is beautiful and unique. And Grant, the Manna House, I don't even know what you call it necessarily, but that movement, I know the name has changed from City Bible Temple to
I don't even, you can tell how long somebody's been in the church by what they say.
What they call it.
Because they'll say literally Bible Temple, City Bible Church, Manna House. They'll give me all three names. Yeah. But even before Bible Temple, it was Deliverance Temple.
Oh, wow.
And it was Deliverance Tabernacle.
Oh, you got Tabernacle in there too?
So Tabernacle became Deliverance Tabernacle, right? So it became we don't want to be a tabernacle, we want to be a temple. And then temple wasn't deliverance anymore. Pastor Iverson felt like it was like he used to say a one-string banjo. Everything came back to deliverance.
Okay.
So when he started to embrace more of a well-rounded biblical framework, it went from Deliverance Temple to Bible Temple.
Nice.
And each kind of era has been an emphasis. And then it went from Bible Temple to City Bible Church, because the idea Bible Temple kind of became, because the hub of the church sits on a hill, like Rocky Butte. And in this picture started to be, people are coming to the temple. They're coming to, so it started to affect almost the mindset of the congregation that we are the mountain of the Lord's house. And all nations will flow to it.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. As Pastor Frank succeeded Dick Iverson, Pastor Frank said, we're not here for the city to come to us. And he really went back to more of a movement mindset and a DNA, which says we're here for the city.
Yeah.
And so that's where multi-site came from. That's where the name change came from to City Bible Church, with just an emphasis. And then Manna House was, after Pastor Frank, he turned the church over to Mark Estes, who'd been in the church for 30 years. And Mark really felt in his heart a name change was important to just mark the next chapter. And Manna House was something presented to us by an organization that helped us navigate it, with the idea that giving away biblical truth is God's provision, which is manna, and temple and house are two biblical kind of concepts. And so they presented the idea Manna House as a current take on Bible Temple, is really what they
Mark and I were talking about it once, and he said and you so quickly resonate with this as like a Portlander, but Bible and church are like loaded words in Portland. That they were like, they surveyed like so many people in Portland, and they're like, that's actually getting in the way of them hearing from the Bible or being part of a community that we, So I love
it's
that.
an interesting thing, and to be honest, in taking it over, it's the number one question I get asked.
I'm sure.
Is,
Yeah,
are you going to
yeah.
change the name?
Oh.
Because it's
really?
it is.
That's
I feel like Manna House is new though. I mean, because when was that? 7 years ago or something?
Yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And so I get asked that a lot. And then when I say no, they say, why not? Because there is a general, among some, a dislike. And it's humorous to me because my view is it kind of doesn't matter.
yeah, exactly. I know.
yeah.
I know.
I would rather just focus the church's money, time, and energy on who we are,
Yeah.
not the name, the name of the church. And so
yeah.
I just stay with the mission. And I really like Rich Wilkerson in Florida, VU Church. I like Chad Veach in California, Zoe. I listen to those names and think, while I love them, like who would have thought that name?
Yeah.
I
Well, they
don't
have to
think
explain those too.
I
right?
don't think it matters.
No.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
it
what
doesn't.
matters is the life, is the church alive? Is it on mission? Is it preaching Jesus? Is it loving people? And does it have a multiplication chip? Like that's
So let's go there. Like,
Yeah,
as you talk
love
about mission and multiplication chip, like what are you seeing right now? What are you encouraged about? Both, if you could speak to maybe Manna House and maybe this particular context of Portland metro area.
boy, that's
I know it's a big question, but
it's a big question. I mean, I'm excited about a lot, honestly, with Manna House. I love Manna House. Like and the thing is, like I feel called to Portland. I love the city of Portland.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people right now don't. And that's really unfortunate to me.
Yeah.
It really is. I feel like pastors have to love the city. And I think we should lead our people to a place where they love the city.
Yeah.
Again, like fall in love. I think Israel was carried away captive into Babylon. And the word of God came to them to build homes and plant vineyards and settle down.
I went to Jeremiah 29 also.
100%.
Yeah.
Have kids. And then, by the way, let them marry and have children. Think generationally. Because as you prosper, the city will prosper.
Yeah.
And I really do believe our prosperity in the Northwest will depend on the church's well-being.
Yeah.
I really do. It's why I think we're all here. And so I get excited about that because I'm seeing Manna House believe that. I really do. I think that they are believing again that there's still work to be done. And that probably excites me the most just because I'm pastoring this local church. And some things that have been really challenging for us, we've, you don't have a 72-year-old church with a college and schools, and it's multi-city and it's multi-state even. And so there's kind of this, it's big and it's hard work and it's a complicated, but there's a return to simplicity. And I think I mentioned this, you and I just had lunch today. And one of the things I mentioned was I could lead big or I could lead small. And I really believe that the unique thing that I'm wired to do and that God is asking us to do is to lead small, meaning every individual is the movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually not about the big. And I do think megachurch gets a rap that is unfair, but it's not outside the realm of understanding. Like I get why it tends to gobble up small churches, and sometimes without compassion. But Pastor Frank taught me that when you have a family walk in that comes from another church that is a smaller church, and they're coming because of the benefits of or what the offerings of or whatever, it actually shouldn't probably thrill you. It should actually grieve you.
That's good.
And so that's one part of just kind of my inner reality as the senior pastor. I care deeply about the churches of Portland, not just my own.
Yeah.
And from that, I lead with the individual in mind. So when I preach, I'm thinking about the single mom, because actually Manna House, like any other church, is people might look at it and think, oh, it's this large institution, but it's made up of single moms. It's made up of people who that week encountered a horrible racist rant. It's made up of people that are thriving in their business and another young entrepreneur who's barely making it. Like the same people sit in my church that sit in somebody else's.
Yeah.
It just happens to maybe be more of them in different locations. But I want to lead Manna House for the one. That's what I want to do. And so I get excited because I see the ones like responsive and doing well. You know, what I'm excited about in Portland is I think the things that are extreme in Portland are actually our opportunities. So the city, especially through 2020, George Floyd, you go through that whole journey. The cry of the city is justice. The cry of the city is heal the brokenness. The cry of the city is there an answer for pain? you know, like I think there is. Yes. But it can't be from a high perch. It's got to be from a low place.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that we have the greatest privilege of all time to serve Jesus. And to take whatever we have and use it for healing, to use it for the cry. And I think also the city and its cry is telling us what it needs. It needs neighborhood. It needs community. It needs table. And I do know table right now is becoming a pretty common phrase. People are talking a lot about it.
Hearing that a lot, moving from the stage to the table.
100%. And that's definitely shaped the language of our church. I think starting with Christ table. Moving into your family and into the neighborhood, into the marketplace. I think all of those are tables. So you would find me even in the pulpit right now saying, hey, let's come to the table of his word. Let's as a family, let's gather together. And so what I'm seeing in Portland is a lot of that. I think the city's asking for it. It's a food city. We have a lot of tables on streets. Like, you know, COVID did it, but it's continued where restaurants are right out into the streets of the city. And you look at that. If I was a missionary, I'd look at that and say, I wonder if tables should be, you know, hospitality, opening your neighborhood home, getting to know somebody. We have the greatest opportunity in front of us if we would come down from the high and the big and just be present. And so that's what I'm honestly most excited about. Probably growing up in the town of 900 helps me in that way.
But it's more than that, right? Like that's probably a piece of it. But as we were talking about earlier, the stages of leadership development. And it's far more unlikely that a 25-year-old first-time leader would be able to say, I don't want big, I want small.
Right.
It's not the masses, it's the one. I'm speaking to the individual. So that, I do think that is, you know, I think that's a big part of it too, is the journey that God has taken you on, that you've responded to, and the leaders that he's made you into, is able to step into a very significant leadership role and still think small. Like I think that's wonderful. And
it's kind of crazy because I have to function very large and move in a day. You move between a college and a school and church and campus and church plant and network. And so, I have to function that way. But at the end of the day, there's this inner core that I think honestly has been in the church. Pastor Iverson had it. Pastor Frank had it. And I worked, by the way, for all of them. Which is that's I'm fun. Probably the only, I'm probably the last in a run here. Where
that's had a huge impact on you.
When I came as a student, Dick Iverson was still the senior pastor. And and he was right at the tail end.
Yeah.
I was there during succession to Frank, worked under Frank for a short amount of time, but he was a voice in my life going out as a church planner. And then as I went out, a key voice all of those years. Then I came back at his request to work with him.
Yeah.
And then he got cancer and transitioned to Mark in a fairly rapid succession because of his sickness. And Mark and I had been friends for a long time, so I was new back, and I thought, I'm not going to go somewhere else. I love this house.
Yeah.
I'll help work through transition. And I've served Mark. He was there 9 years, and is in business now and doing really well. He's in California. We're close friends. But he was there for a very distinct period of time and really helped the church through some challenging moments.
Yeah.
And, I honor him for that. I really do. But as I took the senior role, it's an interesting thing to say, wow, I've been here, apart from the 16 years out, but still very closely connected because of being in the tribe, in the family, the stream, as you mentioned. That we're part of. So, to circle all the way back, it's not a denomination. It is a stream. It's a tribe. It's a family. And generally, when we plant, we stay. So I have a guy that works with me to stay connected to our church planters and our missionaries. We do a once a month call. He's on coaching a lot. I'm on coaching. And then the next layer out is a network, and that network is, it's big. There's a lot of people in it, and that's more. It's all the friends and cousins and everybody who's connected. And
you were saying earlier too, like there's been churches that have that you've planted that then they've become planters, and planted multiple churches.
Third generation,
kind of the granddaughter idea, but both locally, where there's needs here stateside, and then planting in other countries, and so there is this like movement, like
it is
network
it's really
stream.
Cool.
Yeah.
Not every church we planted caught that and went on to be planters, but they might be giving to planting. So in essence, I think all of them have a desire to keep. But some of them have, like the one I was telling you about earlier in Southern Oregon, they're now planting. I mean, they were a church of 300 to 400 that's planted in Mexico. They planted in Chicago. They planted along the I-5 corridor, and they're planting like crazy and continuing to grow and replenish what they plant. So Bob McGregor went out in the 90s and planted up in Hazeldale, City Harvest Church. And out of that church, they planted 10 churches. Wow. And now one that they planted over in Idaho has planted 4 churches. And so it's really cool.
Well, and it sure seems like you said 100 earlier, but it sounds like it's more than 100 that have been planted through the movement.
Oh no, way more than that through the movement.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I don't know, to be honest, that I could that I would have the number. Any knowledge of
which is pretty great.
The second and third generation.
Yes,
because again, it's one graduate of our college who Pastor Iverson sent back to Indonesia. He came from Indonesia, went back to Indonesia and planted. Has a network of 3,300 churches. So
love it.
That's what I'm saying. I can't. So for me to even think I can't lead a local church through that lens, and I don't even talk about it, to be honest with you, because it just seems unattainable. But people have to remember it's 70 years of intentional work in a way that God kind of breathed on the church with a college. And so a lot of leaders have been trained, and it's not normal. It's not normal. Yeah. But what is normal and what any church can do is take whatever seed they have and sow it. Yeah. And that's again where you come down to the one. Yeah. The one, and I'll just tell this quick story, and I don't, our church wasn't that in its beginning. Its beginning, it it was a very small deliverance tabernacle. Dick Iverson's parents were the pastors of Deliverance Tabernacle, and his dad got very sick. He was in Ireland, and his parents called him and said, "Come home, you've got to help your dad." So he came home, didn't want to be the pastor, and ended up feeling kind of forced into taking it. And in the process, just would circulate people, and the church really wasn't going anywhere. And a man by the name of Ernest Gentile came in and spoke to him. Actually, during the service, he turned while he was preaching and looked at Pastor Iverson, and he said, "You have said in your heart," it was like a prophetic word. He said, "You've said in your heart, the problem is the people, but the problem is you."
Wow.
He said, "You have a heart that does not love the sheep."
Oof.
And it broke Pastor Iverson.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He realized that he was speaking truth to him.
Yeah.
And he sent him on a couple of year journey where he started to just discover God's plan for the church. And it's at that point they changed the name to Bible Temple. The church started to grow. He started to love the church, raise up leaders. And in its kind of burgeoning development, a friend of his came in the 70s named Dick Benjamin. And Dick came in, Dick Benjamin spoke in Dick Iverson's church and said, in Matthew 13, the one who sows seed is the Son of Man. The field, this is Jesus' interpretation of the parable of the sower.
Yep.
The field is the world, and the seed are the sons of the kingdom. So if the world is the field and Jesus is a seed sower, the seed are the sons and daughters of the kingdom, then you have to be willing to scatter seed.
Yeah.
And so his word to the church was, there's too much seed in the house. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And so they started as an eldership to study Matthew 13. And that is where, interesting, this summer we'll do a series on Matthew 13 in our church, the parables of the kingdom. And it was out of those parables that the Lord spoke and really morphed the DNA of our church into being. So again, I got
a multiplying
church
where
it is expected that what's latent at the core of every son or daughter of the kingdom is the potential to multiply.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not just physically by having children, but spiritually. So it might be dormant, it might be latent, but in the right environment, with the right soil and the right water and the right sunlight,
you will make disciples.
You will make disciples.
Yeah.
You will multiply. And once that kind of just became the water that we drink, it produced, a movement.
Yes.
Amen.
But the movement starts with an individual. And I think you have to come to that conviction if you're going to be a multiplying church.
Yeah.
That it can't just be an idea that the pastor has.
No.
It can't even just be a giving strategy.
Yeah.
It's actually got to become a conviction all the way down through the one that this is who we are as sons or daughters of the kingdom. So then multiplying happens at the door. Door greeters have to think differently. They have to think about building their teams. They have to think about multiplying their gift. They have to, the usher, you don't get to just hold that bucket the rest of your life. You've got to think about young leaders. You've got to think about,
that is at you're identifying a string that is to pull on that in any size church. In any age of church, how long it's been around is so vital, because it's if you're only looking at yourselves, because you can change when you say the one, somebody can actually hear that of, I just want to love the one, which but Jesus didn't just love them, he sent them.
Yeah.
And so there's that for you, but you for others as well. And if when it doesn't go beyond just the one, like if somebody hears that and doesn't hear the reach and grow and multiply and send and decide, if they don't hear all that in that, they're not hearing what you're saying fully.
I'm saying I'm awakening the one to multiply.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a movement is actually a collection of individuals.
For sure.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And again, when we think movement, we often think structure, we think brand, we think like in today's church marketing world, which frankly nauseates me to the core.
And is like you were saying earlier, Pete, is like that actually is another thing that turns off our specific mission field.
Yeah.
Well, Portland.
It is the antithesis of Portland.
That's a hard stop.
Which is actually shaping also how we approach multi-site.
Good.
Because of that very thing. I would speak maybe 4 or 5 times a year to the whole church, but we've gone to team teaching with, I call it one and distinct. So because you can't be a movement without allowing for distinction. So we can still be one and know that in different locations. Personally, our view is a church is for a region, so a city, a metron, a sphere that God appoints. And if he calls you to a city, so we kind of have defined our metron as a church as the Portland, Vancouver area. So we actually don't plant churches in the city. We plant campuses. And those campuses remain one church, but with distinct freedoms that allow for, I think, our unique mission field. We're not in the Bible Belt. And we did have a 10-year run where we did more of a franchise kind of model, and it did what it did. But I think we've had to realize, and the elders have been willing to go with me on this journey to realize that the Northwest and specifically the Portland Metro it's a unique mission field. That if we're going to remain multi-site, we have to approach it differently. And so I think that's us in a larger scenario, but you boil that all the way down, it's the same movement idea that has to be in every church, no matter what its size, which is what environment am I in? What does it need? And how do I awaken the one to multiply? And
Derrill,
that's a lot.
Thank you. Well, it is a lot. And seriously, like just thank you for those of you that are listening, like just to get to hear your journey, your wisdom, but probably most importantly, just your heart. And it's an honor to be teaming with you here in this setting and to be able to sit here with you today and have those that are listening get to hear and learn from you. And so
it's a lot of fun, man.
Good. And for people that are serving now, for people that are thinking about planting here or serving here, to know that we are all on the same team and we feel that solidarity. 100%. And I just really appreciate that about you and your church, to feel like we are passionate about the same things. And
we are, man.
And Jesus, it's John 17, and unity is going to bring revival, and it's a joy to serve together.
It is. Thank you guys. Thanks for being friends, and for even allowing me to share a little bit about our journey. It's a privilege. I love this city, and I love what God's doing, and I'm really honored to be developing friendships with pastors in the city. So thank you guys.
Right on.
Very last thing as we close here, I'm just going to attempt to embarrass you by having you show us your book that I caught.
It was my birthday last week, so I do appreciate the present you're about to give me.
So if you don't know, Derrill is an author now and has written a book, Made to Move, and it's actually a lot of what you were sharing, and so it's using it. And I know how you've used it in the life of Manna House already. And I
actually brought it for you as a gift because Tim knew this came out a long time ago and whatever. And so I brought it for you, and I wasn't, he asked me, do you want to set it up here? And I'm like, no, I did not bring it for that. I brought it for you. But no, it is true. Thanks. I tell a little bit of our story in there, and kind of the core DNA of the fact I think everybody is made to move. They're made to follow boldly and tenaciously the call of Jesus in their life. That leads some people into the marketplace as multiplying followers of Jesus in whatever. And I kind of follow a little bit of the journey of Abram and just overcoming trials, and tell a little bit of our own crises in there. So anyways, hopefully it's a blessing too.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Derrill. So good to be with you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Jesus in the Upper Left. We want to ask you a quick favor. Would you please subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and share with those that are in your life that might benefit from the content. Hit the notifications button, rate and review, of course, and then head on over to upperleftshow.com where you can find bonus content, opportunities to connect with those around the city that are doing similar work as you, resources to help you, and just a way to connect to the community. We hope to see you again next time.